Oh, bonjour. Hello. It's Kelsey and Todd, and we're live. Here's Todd's bumming back. We're live at Centennial Park in 100 Mile. We are here with Saturn and Tay. They are from the Pride Society.
The 100 Mile Pride Society.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Are you guys in charge of it? Are you the organizers, or what's your role?
Yeah, so my role is the founder, and I'm currently also the treasurer, and Tay is the chairperson.
That's right.
Wow. What does that mean exactly?
Mostly that means that I cheerlead and I run the meetings, and Saturn here manages our financials. And as the founder, Saturn is the expert on basically how everything works. And so whenever anybody else on the team doesn't know what they should be doing, Saturn is ready to jump in and give them some pointers.
I feel
Very
like
nice.
That's actually your job more than it is mine.
Oh, no.
Because Tay has the organization skills, and I have just been here since the beginning. So basically, if it comes to planning events and things in town and making connections, that's kind of my realm. But you keep us like in order.
We make a good team.
Yeah.
How like a Pride Society starts in a place like 100 Mile, which I feel is maybe has a reputation for being a little bit backwoods and rednecky.
Yeah, definitely.
What was that like?
We have like a pretty organic origin story, I would say. I moved here in 2021. And we moved from Victoria. My partner and I came kind of mid-pandemic, and there was a lot of major differences that I noticed being here, especially from growing up in a place that was as progressive as Victoria.
Right.
So I really was searching for a bit of that queer community that I had back on the island, and I was struggling to find it. Although I was seeing queer people around here. Like, I was clocking people at the grocery store, and I was wondering, like, where are people hanging out, you know?
Yeah.
I was looking around, and I didn't really see any rainbows in the doorways, and, you know, it just felt like everything was very hush-hush and, like, underground. And that is because that's true. That's how it was. And there was one business in town that had a rainbow flag in the door, the Caribou Family Enrichment Center, and I was inspired by that. And, you know, I actually kind of like, I'd been mustering over the idea of starting a Facebook group. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make a group called 100 Mile Queers and Allies. Because I thought I better include the allies or else there's going to be actually 5 of us in this group.
Right.
And so I made a group on Facebook called 100 Mile Queers and Allies. And I just watched it grow from there. And somebody who worked at the Caribou Family Enrichment Center reached out to me and basically said, hey, actually, we have been wanting to do something with the queer community here. There are queer people here, and 100 Mile has kind of a long way to go in terms of visibility and inclusiveness and celebrating diversity and gender identity and stuff. So it kind of spiraled from there. I did not move here with the plan to start a Pride Society. It actually very much happened organically. So from that original group, we had our very first Pride in 2022.
Cool.
It was very, very small. It was in this park right behind us.
Nice.
And and it's grown from there into what it is now, which...
What was that like that day? Were there like vendors and
No.
No? Okay.
So what it was the first year, and I think we threw it together in a few months. Like, it was really a matter of like weeks, basically. And basically what it was we partnered with the Caribou Family Enrichment Center, which is another nonprofit, and they do lots of work around youth and families. And part of that is working with LGBTQ youth, but, you know, that's kind of one sect of what they do. So we partnered with them, and they were essentially the only kind of table at the booth. They just set up like a resource table, and we had some activities for kids. We did like a fun scavenger hunt. We had a drag performer come up, and it was very grassroots. Like, when I look back on it now, I think of it as being like it was so nostalgic now. Yeah, it was just like really like the very beginning. Yeah. But it was because we kind of thought, okay, actually, like the the people in the community are requesting a meetup, you know,
Yeah.
and if we're going to do something, let's do it. Let's make it a celebration.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
that's how it started.
And were you surprised with the outcome? Were you expecting more or less, or were you, I guess it's hard to tell.
I mean, I think that there was the newspaper article that came out after that first one estimated the crowd size to be about 300 people.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty
Which
impressive,
was
right?
kind of crazy.
Yeah.
For a town of 2,000. And, you know, at the time, I think that our Facebook group had about 300 people in it. So to think that, like, all of those people probably came down to Pride in the Park is pretty crazy.
Yeah. So you said 300.
That's what I
about
was
that.
really, I have a very bad, like, I can't estimate crowd sizes.
Right.
And also I was like, you know, overstimulated all day, not ever having planned an event like that. So I couldn't tell you how many people were there, but the newspaper people said it was about 300.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they must know what they're talking about.
I mean, you would hope.
Yeah.
And how big was the team that helped you get that together?
That,
Really just the two of you.
yeah, there was Chris and myself, and Micah actually was there from the very beginning, kind of in a small role. Micah planned the scavenger hunt, which people talked about for quite a few years after that.
Cool.
What was it about the scavenger hunt that led to people just nothing like that had been done? Or?
Micah was so creative. They did like a whole, like, basically clues that had to do with the previous clue, and like people were, I don't know, they were going all around the park looking for different things, and they just, like, the wording, I'm not creative like that. Like, I can't make up like a mystery clue with like a little elusive kind of
Right,
meaning.
yeah.
Like, I'm very literal. So yeah.
It's by the garbage can.
Yeah, exactly. So no, they did a great job doing that, and it was just really fun for the whole family, and that's what 100 Mile Pride has always really been centered around. Like, all of our events essentially have been family friendly. And I think that, like, that is something that is important in a community like this, because, you know, the current situation that we have in the world is really kind of questioning the safety around young people and around queer people. So, you know, we've always, right from the get-go, been like, this is the vibe of our Pride Society, is like, you know, we are going to foster this inclusive setting. That means it's for everyone. Arguably, all prides are for everyone. But, you know, in a climate like in 100 Mile, we were very sensitive to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you had much in the way of, like, negative pushback from people?
Some. Yeah, some.
Yeah.
Certainly more earlier on. I think our second year, there was a threat of a protest. A bunch of people on Facebook were quite upset about us doing a parade. But
a parade.
thankfully, that bravery online did not translate to bravery in person.
It often doesn't, yeah.
And I believe that the RCMP may have
Oh, was it like
put out a quiet statement or something to that effect, saying, hey, like, don't come and protest at this event. And they came and were there with us at that event. And so that's about as far as that went. And
Good.
every once in a while, some people in the community get a little bit riled up by what we're doing. Earlier this year, we put up some beautiful banners on the streetlights in town featuring a local queer Indigenous artist's work. And we did get some pretty negative comments about that. But again, that stuff really, it stays online. You know, people post that stuff in the safety of their own home. And, you know, I think we've really felt safe in the real world.
I think it says a lot about that person than it does about whoever they're attacking, right? You know.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very strongly opinionated about stuff that really in the end doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope it doesn't affect you guys. When it, you know,
Having a good team of people that we can talk to about it and get our feelings out, that really helps.
Yeah.
You know, that helps us get those feelings out.
yeah. Do you find your community growing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that this past year, we just had Pride a couple of weeks ago, and there was maybe 500 people at Pride this year. And our group has grown a little bit.
Yeah.
We have like maybe 400 people in the group. But I think apart from that, we've been collaborating with other Pride societies in surrounding
Such as?
areas, such as Williams Lake.
Yeah.
We've also done an event with Kamloops Pride,
nice.
which was good. And yeah, and there's an organization called Fiarte Canada Pride. They have a rural and remote pride committee, and it's for small town pride. So I have been going to meetings for that.
Perfect.
And it's really interesting to just like draw these connections and, you know, talk to people who are in northern Manitoba or like wherever, all throughout Canada.
Yeah.
And they're kind of having like similar problems and similar successes, and just getting to like share information and create that network that expands much farther than just us in 100 Mile.
Yeah, for sure. I bet that would be incredibly valuable, having, people in places that are experiencing similar things to be able to share stories and maybe share solutions and how to outreach maybe. I don't know whether or not that's something that you guys are trying to do, as far as like, educate people who maybe don't know better. What does Pride in 100 Mile look like when it's not the parade?
So throughout the year, we have quite a few community events that we do. Oftentimes, it will be things like going bowling, or we'll rent out the swimming pool in Williams Lake and, have an inclusive swim. We try to do things that are fun for the family and bringing people together and kind of like, not necessarily just a drinking setting, which
Right.
we all also like. But, I think that like right now we're starting to do a few more projects that are more education based or kind of more like intellectual based. So this month we're starting a queer discussion group series. It's just 4 consecutive Thursdays. And we brought in somebody who teaches at a local school, and they are kind of planning some almost like lesson plans about different topics like queer parenting or intersectionality within the LGBTQ community. And those are things that we want to do more of in the future. I mean, we are a relatively new Pride Society, so I think like above and beyond, we want to bring people together. I don't know if it's 100% our goal to educate everybody in this area. I think that focusing on visibility and, kind of working towards that normalcy of whatever gender identity or sexual orientation you are, and feeling accepted no matter what is kind of the goal. But yeah, I think that we're kind of softly launching, doing a few more kind of educational things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you hoping to travel and do that too?
I don't want to say no, but I don't know if we have any current plans to do much big traveling like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that we have been asked to do as a Pride Society is do like an inclusive language lunch and learn. So if there's like an organization in town that is kind of like, we have some folks that would like to understand, but they just, they've never been exposed to that kind of language and it's confusing, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go and do something like that in town if somebody asked us to do that.
And I feel like the language has changed over the years.
It's always
it?
evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, language is always evolving.
True.
Right?
Tech is,
Yeah.
Don't get me started on tech.
Yeah. I mean, the word skibbity didn't exist when I was growing up, and now I hear my child say it every second day. So
Don't make them cringe.
Oh, sorry.
I said cringe around someone who's like 14, and they're like, "You know that word?"
Okay, cringe. It was a word that when I was cringe has been a word for a long time.
Yeah.
It's skibbity, not
It's
so
cringe
much.
that they didn't know that we know cringe. Yeah. Anyway,
What would be an example of sort of like how you would educate somebody in regards to sort of language around that sort of subject?
I think it depends where you're starting out.
Yeah.
Like, I think that I go back to the very basics, and I take for granted sometimes the language that is ingrained in my brain because I've been immersed in queer culture for a decade, right? So I think I usually approach things really gently, and I never want anybody to feel like they feel stupid for not knowing things. You don't know stuff that, you've never been taught.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah.
And so, I'll go right into it from the very beginning, like even the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. Like, I think a lot of folks around here have not really actually processed what the difference of those things are. And a lot of things that we talk about are like pronouns. I think the they, them pronoun can be a little bit challenging for folks. you know, you can kind of just relate it to different examples. And usually people kind of come around where they're like, oh yeah, like that is actually a sentence that doesn't sound weird. And I would say that doesn't,
Right.
you know? So
Yeah.
I think that, you just take a really gentle approach. And I think it makes a difference that somebody wants to learn. I'm not trying to
that's a
educate
good
people
point.
who don't want to learn,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not going to argue with somebody, and I'm not going to try to change somebody's mind about something that they have firm beliefs in. So
Yeah.
that's kind of,
Yeah, I respect that. And I respect the soft approach to it too. Whatever the topic may be, you know, especially older people, we're set in our ways.
That is true. That is
you
true.
know? But yeah, I love open conversation and hearing perspectives. And yeah, I think we could all learn from each other.
Yeah.
do you have anything to add to that? Because I think that you take an approach where you really like to be forward facing in a lot of different community activities and just have visibility.
Yeah, I do. Something that I've found up in 100 Mile is that there aren't a lot of truly hateful people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of people who have never met someone who's openly transgender or openly gay or uses a non-traditional pronoun, right? And so for a lot of those people, a way to educate them is to just be around them and be honest about who you are and maybe field a weird question and not take it too personally, right? And I've really found that that's made a big difference on some of the people that I see day to day, and people who I really wouldn't have expected to be allies and be good friends have really turned out to be. And for me, that's been my approach to working with the community and trying to make a difference.
And it's got to be, I think, positive to see that maybe people that you would have expected to maybe be less understanding turns out to maybe not quite be allies, but are at least willing to hear and try to learn.
Absolutely. And, something I've seen from some people that I now consider to be my friends is that they sometimes end up with a feeling of regret for some of the more regressive perspectives that they've had. And they have really wanted to be allies and be friends when they realize that I am just a person. And maybe some of those things that they said to me when they first met me were a little insensitive or a little bit mean, right? And so some of my best friends out here actually have been people who were, very against transgender people or very conservative in their views. And for me, more than meeting people like Saturn in the queer community, meeting people who are not a part of my community and seeing them change their perspectives has been the thing that has made me feel safest in 100 Mile.
Anything else that you guys have going on sort of between Pride parades? Do you ever do like a queer book club or?
Well, I think that the queer discussion group is kind of like a baby step into a potential queer book club.
Okay.
Because the discussion group is really going to be taking a piece of literature or a piece of art or, an article or something and kind of using that as a basis for the discussion. So instead of doing something like committing to reading a book, you can take the reading material that day, spend 5 minutes reading it, and then we can talk about it. So we're going to see what the interest is going to be. There's so many queer books, amazing queer books out there that we would like to do that. But we're just we're not sure if there's going to be enough interest.
Yeah. What would be a favorite queer book of either of yours?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Curious George. Is that why he was so curious? I don't know.
By Curious George?
I'd read that book.
I think I read Elliot Page's memoir.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I really enjoyed that because I feel like I don't really read a lot of memoir books, and I don't really have a particular interest in any celebrity. But it was kind of interesting to kind of read about a story that was similar, not just to me, but to a lot of people that I know, and kind of put it on this perspective level where it's like, yeah, like even these queer icons that I look up to in the world, and even that have existed before me in history and sort of paved the way for a lot of the things that I'm doing today, are just also regular people. Like it kind of puts things all into perspective that like we all are sharing similar experiences. So I liked that book.
Yeah, and I think, what's interesting about his story is that it in many ways it sort of played out in the public, and sort of us of the public got to sort of see that happen, but then to be able to see the other side of it, to have a better understanding of it, I guess would be probably pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. the one queer book that I've read, which is more of a graphic novel actually, and it was because my daughter loved it, is Heartstopper.
Oh,
the
yeah.
graphic novel.
Yeah.
Which we covered. I have a podcast on banned books and that sort of thing. So we did it on there. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is framing the story instead of around, because when I started reading it, you got the sense that, oh, it's going to be about this gay character coming to terms with all of that. And instead, it's about this character who had thought he was straight and now is coming to terms with maybe being bisexual, which felt like a perspective that is kind of new to literature, at least, young adult literature, maybe, but is still probably just as big a struggle to kind of go through as anything else.
And I think that there's more representation in books than there is in TV or film. And so when they made Heartstopper into a TV show, I was inspired by that.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I think that I have to admit I didn't read the graphic novel, but I did watch the show, or at least the first season. But yeah, I think that it's hard to feel that like there was this very generic queer story that existed in literature and film that was kind of, somebody has this sort of identity crisis and doesn't really know where they fit in and meets a partner and, there's love and then there's sorrow and somebody's not out yet or ready to, there was just this very kind of stereotypical story that happened in a lot of different queer dramas.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see that there's more visibility for, bisexual people or pansexual people or intersex people. There's been so many different characters now that I'm like, wow, this is actually, I think, a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think it is hugely important for people to have the ability to see their own experiences reflected in either, literature, film, television, where maybe it's not happening as much, but to be able to, because I imagine it can be pretty lonely if you don't have an ability to sort of see other people with those same experiences.
Definitely. I think that in this town, something that we've had a special interest in is working with youth here. What we have found a lot of is that youth will grow up here and they don't find a community that makes them want to stay. And so, especially when it comes to queer youth, they often go to school elsewhere and they do not come back, And I think that it would be great to see 100 Mile grow into a place that actually has opportunities and has community for youth today.
Totally.
Because, and part of that is just representation.
So.
Anything else relevant that we should talk about with Pride? Yeah, so I will say a bit about the Rainbow Visibility Initiative. Yeah. So in the beginning, when I was looking around in windows for pride flags and I wasn't really seeing too much going on here, one of the first projects that we did with the Gay Straight Alliance from the local high school is we had stickers that said everyone is welcome here. And we walked around with the youth from the high school and went to different businesses and offered them a sticker to put in their window. And now, I don't know if you two have been around the main street in 100 Mile, but you can see dozens of stickers in the windows and it feels so much different here.
I bet it would.
Yeah. And so every year we do a little bit more with the sticker campaign. People will add stickers to their businesses. If there's just a new business, people have reached out to the Pride Society and said, I'm a new business and I need a sticker. Do you still have some?
That's really cool.
And you mentioned the banners that we had made.
That's right.
So that was a pretty big project that we did, banners for the light posts in town. So we're kind of focusing more on creating more of that visibility in 100 Mile House. And so far it's really, I think, when you say it hasn't been that long, but a lot has happened.
Yeah.
It's true that the feeling of walking down the streets and being where do the queer people hang out, to now being wow, there's signs of celebrating diversity here, almost on every street corner, you know?
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's got to be incredibly rewarding as well to sort of see the work that you're putting in paying off in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And it's been, the banners were a great project because we got to work pretty closely with the village council, who have turned out to be really surprisingly great allies. They were very supportive when we came to them and asked them about doing an art project. And we're really thankful to have a relatively progressive council here.
And so if people do want to reach out and connect with you guys and find out how they can help, what would be the most efficient ways for them to do that? Is it email? Is it Facebook? What does it look like?
Yeah, so our email is 100, the number is 100, milepride@gmail.com. Okay. And we also have a Facebook and Instagram page, so anybody can give us a follow and reach out there.
Same name?
Yeah, 100 Mile Pride or 100 Mile Pride Society.
Cool.
And we love to hear from people, and it kind of does seem like far or wide anybody that wants to be involved, we can find space for.
So, let's wrap things up here and get ready for the next one. Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
For sitting down.
Anybody?
Yep.
Oh,
Mom, Dad, anything like that?
Yeah, I'll say hello to all of the people that are watching this that know me.
You know who you are.
You know who you are.
All right.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. Hi, my dad.
Thank you.
Hi, Todd's dad.
Hi, Todd's dad. Hello, Todd's mom. Thank you guys.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Hi, Grandma.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All the best. Hopefully, the next Pride is even better than this one, and onward and upward.
Thank you.
Do you want to end with a